I don't know about you guys. I'm pretty sick of Disney at this point. I don't know what happened, especially after phase 3 of the MCU, but everything Disney has been putting out pretty much has gone to, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do y'all drop the ball like that? But before I go off on that tangent, today we want to talk about Disney, primarily the Star Wars IP, which George Lucas sold to them, which we're going to get into. And we're going to kind of talk about a little bit why that happened, why George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney, and we'll slowly unpack this more and more as the video goes on. And I might talk about this in multiple videos, to be honest, because it's so bad right now, it's not even funny. If you don't know, you have to be living under a rock. But Disney, especially when it comes to Star Wars, has been taking nonstop L's, just L's after L after L after L after L. These folks are trying to collect enough L's to match Ash's Pokemon League badges and Frontier Brain badges like collection, dude. Like they must be trying to match that because like they have to be trying to fail on purpose. Like I don't know what's going on, but they must be woolly. They must have a weird like masochistic desire or something, or some type of kink, the way they are just dropping the ball on everything. So we're gonna shift over to Marvel. So again, after phase 3 of the MCU is when things really started just going downhill for that whole group of IPs and even some other ones that they're trying to introduce now or did introduce, and they just didn't do it too well. And I know some movies were better than others, but I would say the first 3 phases of the MCU were consistently good. Like, in my opinion and to my memory, there were no, like, any in the first 3 phases, there were no Marvel movies that were just downright terrible, if I remember correctly. Like, they were all decent. Some were like, it was okay, it was cool, isn't it? But it all culminated into its own thing. And obviously with Infinity War and Endgame, massive, historical, one of the best things ever. I know, you got people that are talking about movies and then you have cinema, and they're not the same things. And I know, I believe it was Scorsese that came out and said the MCU is not cinema, which I guess, depending on who you talk to, is instantly like, it's never going to be considered like the best form of film artwork that can be put out. I don't care. Though the first 3 phases, especially Winter Soldier and Civil War, great movies. Iron Man, the first one primarily, great. The third one was cool. It was good. It was pretty much good through and through. And that's what makes Marvel's fall from grace so crazy, because at one point it was consistently good. Like, it wasn't as much fear of, I hope this is a good one, it's gonna be terrible, and like, no, more times than not, you walk into the movie knowing it was gonna be cool at minimum. We were more optimistic back then. Star Wars, at least ever since it fell into the hands of Disney, has never had that opportunity. Not once. It's been the sequel trilogy is boring. I don't think I've tried to watch all 3 movies. Well, I have, but none of the movies can hold my attention like permanently, the way that the old Marvel movies did. Just none of the newer Star Wars movies were I was able to pay attention to like completely from front to back. More times than not, I just wasn't interested. I had good moments, but I'm pretty sure I'm missing gaps in the story that might be important if you care about those movies like that. Then you have the TV series that came out. Andor, I haven't seen it yet. I heard that it's a slow starter, but once it gets cracking, it gets cracking. So apparently Andor is one of the better series. Then you have Ahsoka, which I think is cool. I don't think it deserves all the flack that people are giving it, but it's also not like crazy interesting either. But it definitely has some good moments in my opinion. But then we have most recently, and arguably the thing that's gonna put Star Wars in a pine box eternally, The Acolyte. I have yet to hear a single person say a single good thing about this. Geeks, business content creators, whatever, anyone who gives a flying flip about Star Wars, I have heard no one say a good thing about this show at all, and I don't have anything good to say about it either. That's what makes it so much worse. That ever since Star Wars, unlike Marvel, fell into Disney's hands, they've had microscopic wins, like small wins, but there was never a consistent time of everything just being good. Like, it's just been bad, and whenever you think it can get worse, it gets worse and worse and worse. The best way I can put it is that Star Wars is essentially in its own version of the Neo Saban era for Power Rangers. Yeah, it's basically that. With that said, why on God's earth did George Lucas bother selling Star Wars to Disney anyway? So apparently George Lucas was not planning on producing any more Star Wars related content at all back when he owned the IP, which let's rewind real quick. George Lucas sold the Star Wars IP to Disney in 2012 for about $4.1 billion, if I remember correctly. And it was a mix of cash and stocks. So he got straight up liquid cash, but he also has, I don't know how many stocks, but he basically is a partial owner of Disney as a company. I don't think he has a controlling stake in it, because I'm pretty sure if he did, he would be able to tell Disney what to do with Star Wars, since he would own majority of the company, and they would pretty much have to listen to him because he would own at minimum 51% of Disney. So the fact that that hasn't been happening, either he just doesn't care or he just doesn't have a controlling stake. And I'm pretty sure he just doesn't have a controlling stake. But back to why he sold it. So he sold it because he wasn't planning on adding any more lore and content to Star Wars. He was good where it was at. But he wanted people to still enjoy it. It's obviously still very popular. People love Star Wars. We still talk about it on a regular basis, even before we got new material. It's always going to be there. So George wanted us, the fans, including future generations of fans, if there are any, to continue enjoying Star Wars. And he felt that Disney had both the expertise and the resources, okay, I'll give him that, to basically do more stories of Star Wars properly. When everything was said and done, they inked a deal in 2012 again, where George Lucas officially sold the Star Wars IP to Disney, and they now have complete control of it. He can't truly tell them what to do. He might be able to personally reach out to them to give some suggestions or something, but he cannot truly tell anyone in Disney what to do with Star Wars. It's not his place. He doesn't own it anymore. So yeah, like I said, he sold it for $4 billion, but a mix of cash and stocks. Again, pretty sure he doesn't have a controlling stake, because I'm pretty sure he would have said something by now, or at least that's the hope. So unfortunately, he's on cruise control. He's on the passenger seat. Shoot, he's even in the back seat. He just has to watch what happens and just go with the flow. He cannot tell Disney what to do with Star Wars at this point. I'm not going to list them all off, but ever since the acquisition of Star Wars by Disney, we've gotten a slew of, from lukewarm to some straight up just terrible shows and movies. So just to name off the probably bigger name ones, you have, again, Ahsoka, which I think is okay, but I understand why people don't necessarily, they're not in love with it. You have The Book of Boba Fett, which I just watched 2 days ago. I gave it another look. I tried to watch it before. It was boring. Tried it again a couple days ago. Still boring. Still didn't really pay attention. The one episode that actually caught my attention and in my opinion was good was the episode that wasn't even about Boba Fett. It was the episode about Mando, the Mandalorian, from a whole different series, when he had to train using the Darksaber. Other than that, I really couldn't care less about anything else that happened in the Book of Boba Fett. So that was a no. The Mandalorian, which I still need to catch up, but I think I got into somewhere in season 2, but seasons 1 and 2 are generally received to be pretty freaking good. And then season 3 happened, and now everyone agrees what the heck happened with that. Andor, same thing. It was a slow burn, a slow starter, but apparently once it gets going, it gets going. And generally, from what I've seen online and seen other content creators talking about, it's pretty much a good show. It's one of the newer Star Wars shows that Disney actually apparently got right. Maybe not in its entirety, but they got it right. And again, keep in mind, this show only has, as of now, 3 episodes out as of last night or 2 nights ago, The Acolyte. And based off its first 2 episodes, which came out at the same time, the first 2 episodes served as the season premiere or the series premiere. And just off the 2 episodes, everyone was like, Star Wars is cooked. It's done. It's dead. It's a wrap. If we never get Star Wars content again, The Acolyte is going to be the final cherry on top that really just set that rose on the casket and just put it down. That's where a lot of people are at. So that's not everything, but because you got the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which in my opinion fluctuates between being pretty interesting, especially with the cyberpunk aesthetic to it at times, and I really like cyberpunk. Other times where it's also pretty just boring and dry. So again, it shuffles, it's inconsistent, and I think that's what really makes the fall of Star Wars, Disney Star Wars, really bad, because if you compare it side by side to Marvel, because those are the 2 biggest groups of IPs, they're the 2 biggest names under Disney that they have just screwed up so much. It's weird, and it needs to be studied. Like Disney's fall with those 2, but especially Marvel, needs to be like a whole college course. That's not even just a seminar. We may have to create a new college course to examine how Disney messed up, particularly Marvel, so bad. It's crazy, right? That's why George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney, and unfortunately, he can't take it back. He can't make them do anything. The deal is done. The ink is dry. The stuff that the Star Wars stuff primarily that's been put out, we just have to take it, you know, as it comes out. If they happen to get something right, cool. They finally give us something to celebrate. But generally speaking, no, it just has not gone that well. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave this video off here, guys. If you guys have any comments or feedback for me, share that with me in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.